And then you asked about story mapping in particular. One of the challenges I ran into with coaching is that if I ask a team, okay, so you have a solution idea. What are the assumptions your solution depends upon? It's a really hard question for teams to answer. And I was wrestling with this at a very specific moment in time. I had a set of teams. I saw this problem over and over again. They were having a really hard time identifying their assumptions. And at that time, I happened to be at an event where Jeff Patton was teaching his workshop. And I was watching him do what he did. I was already familiar with story mapping. I'd already seen Jeff do this a million times before, but it happened to occur at exactly the right time that I was noodling on how do I help teams surface assumptions. And I watched him in person put stickies on a board, do his little drawing of the story map and the purpose of the story map. And it occurred to me, story mapping is a great way to surface assumptions because it's a team activity where we're getting really explicit about what our solution means. And when we're really explicit about what our solution means, we start to make assumptions. Now, Jeff teaches story mapping as a way to do release planning, and it's great for that too. I just moved it much earlier in the process to align around what a solution means, and then to use each step in the story map to generate very specific assumptions. And it works because one of the things that was hard is it's hard to see our own assumptions. It's hard to know how specific our assumptions should be. And story mapping actually solves both of those. I started experimenting with it and it worked really well. So I borrowed it.
If this was like the scientific community, it's been peer reviewed because I'll send you a picture after the interview. So I did a tour where I toured with customers in Mexico, used the interview framework, and then got everything on the interview snapshots. And then we did a workshop where we took everything from the interview snapshots, put them into all the insights and quotes into Post-its, and we affinity mapped, did pattern recognition, did some quick modified it a little bit in the interest of time of doing like reverse story mapping where you do the initial story first and then we do ideation. And so the product team and design team, we like work together, the CTO there and everything. And above us in the next room, in the ballroom of the hotel was like most of the engineering team. And so we just transcribed everything in the story map into like a FigJam board. And then I hooked it up to the projector upstairs, like 30 engineers. And we're like, okay, we're going to try to break FigJam. And we got all of them to jump into it and then on the projector, you see all these little cursors. And then I walked them through the assumption exercise and the whole engineering team just assumption mapped like our product strategy. And we just got it out of the way in like less than an hour.
Yeah. Here's what I'll tell you. The book content is based on my coaching curriculum. My coaching curriculum is my product. That's what I view as my product. And all of our online courses are based on that coaching curriculum. And here's how I ran this. I eat my own dog food. Like I run the exact same process in the book to run my business. So you asked about like, how did these methods develop? They're just solutions to opportunities I found to drive an outcome. So for a long time, 100% of what I did was team coaching. I coached in terms. So I was always working with their cohorts, right? I was always working. All teams started on the same day or the same week. I coached them for 12 weeks. I had a 12-week term. They were a cohort. So what I did was I started with an outcome. My outcome was I want to increase the number of teams who by the end of that term have adopted good habits. And I basically would track for all of the teams in a cohort at what week in the 12 weeks did they adopt different habits. And then I was trying to reduce the time it took for them to adopt habits. And I worked this way for years, just looking at how do I get these teams to adopt these habits faster? Now, in order to do that, I have to productize the solution. So I had to move away from, I'm just going to show up to a coaching call and tackle whatever you encounter. And I had to start to build a formal curriculum. That curriculum became my product. That's how I made sure every team had the same experience so that I could start to measure outcomes. Now, of course, it wasn't exactly the same experience because different teams had different challenges. And my coaching calls almost became my interviews. A team went through the curriculum. They tried to apply it. They did it as a flipped classroom. They went through the curriculum on their own. They tried to apply it. We did a coaching session. And in the coaching session, we're starting to look at, for them, I'm trying to help them adopt the habit. For me, I'm looking at where did they run into problems? How do I fix and evolve the curriculum so that I'm matching the needs that came up in the coaching call and I'm driving my outcome of helping them adopt the habits more quickly. And then it was just an iterative process of how do I improve my product to meet the team's needs in a way that drives my outcome. It's literally that simple. I ran the exact same process. And it,
Yeah. So yeah.
I was
Oh,
going to
go
say,
ahead.
it was when I got to the point where most of my teams were adopting most of the habits in a 12-week time period that I said, okay, it's time to write a book about this.
Yeah. You've really proven it out at that point, right? And codified it and have all this like performance data. And so the coaching calls were basically the minimum viable products. Like, okay, bespoke, custom workshops. And then from experience doing that, you're like, okay, cool. I'm going to start prototyping a curriculum. And then I'm going to try to see how fast I could deliver the content in a coaching engagement. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to measure, okay, the curriculum's doing a little bit better. Okay, now I'm going to measure how fast they're taking on the habit. And then eventually you get so many revs that you're just like, okay, I could do a book now, which I think so many people, they write books before doing any of that work, or if they do it at all.
And honestly, I tried that. I tried to write my book in 2016 and I realized that, oh, books are waterfall. You write the book and hope people like it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that. That's what really helped me turn my coaching service into a product. It was a way of being able to test my content before I codified it in a book.
Well, and also you only get one good first impression. And just imagine just writing that book, just shooting from the hip. Like, you definitely wouldn't have made as much of an impact than how you did now. And like this is a cult classic in the product industry. And I'm not trying to like fanboy or anything, but it's just really cool to hear that, like, how much work you put into this.
Yeah, I mean, it's really made a decision 12 years ago. I loved being a product person. I loved working with product teams. I love working with engineers. It was not a trivial decision to decide I'm going to go work as a coach. To me, it's important enough. I really think the world would be better. Like everybody in the world, consumers, employees. I don't really care about the VCs, but even they would be better because they'd have more hits. Like literally everybody would be better if our technology was better. And I really think everybody would be better if teams learned how to build faster feedback loops. It was not an easy decision, but I think it was the right decision for me.